Let's talk. Oscar, first off, I want to say thank you for being here, man. It's a lot of, I know it takes a lot of time out of your schedule to finagle even 30 minutes. So I understand that sometimes it's a little complicated. But thank you for taking a moment and just talking with the audience and everyone has a mindset. But I want to start with a simple question I ask everybody. Where are you from?
I am originally from Mexicali.
Okay.
Yeah. My parents moved to India when I was about 3 years old. I grew up there in a very hardworking immigrant neighborhood. My mom was a housekeeper. My dad worked in the fields. I went to Indio High School. While I was in high school, I did a couple of jobs. I worked in pool construction. I did some work at the CVS pharmacy. I was a cashier in the back pharmacy on 111. And then I was a PE teacher at CVUSD during the summers. And so I stayed really busy, but I was still able to do well in high school. I got a 4.9 GPA in high school, got accepted into Stanford University, where I studied chemistry. While I was there, I did some research in bioterrorism, actually helped form one of the first 3D databases of drug molecules that was later used in computer simulations to look at drug interactions. While I was there, I also learned about the immigration detention centers. It was 15 years ago. It was still quite a bit under the radar. But once I got hold of that, I realized that I needed to study government and politics as well as science in order to better help my community.
Correct. Yep. So you've done, thank you, that was quite a bit. So to pick off a bit of all of those, you worked a regular job, if you want to call it regular. Basically, it's a 9 to 5, as you must. And what did you learn in that first job? What was your first, which one of those jobs was your first job?
The pool construction was the first one.
Okay,
and that's what really made me realize that I needed to focus on my school.
How old were you when you started working there?
I was 16 years old.
16. Was that with family or by yourself? Or
by myself, with some family and friends as well.
Okay. So you started at around the age of 16, most of us do, and you started working, and from there you went on to the next thing and the next thing. At one point, did you become a council member for the city of Indio, California?
So I first started my career in chemistry, right? Mm-hmm. And so I worked in biopharmaceuticals. I used to make food for cells that were used for medicine. And then I worked in a radioactive lab, actually, with UCLA in the Veterans Hospital. I helped synthesize radioactive injections that were used for brain scans at the Veterans Hospital. After that, I actually moved into the cannabis industry, and we helped do pharmaceutical level testing on cannabis, medical cannabis products, to make sure that there was safe access to medical products for cancer patients, HIV patients, kids with seizures, those types of issues. I actually helped the wife of a police officer in Indio, and she had stage 4 lung cancer. She was given 2 to 6 weeks to live, and we were able to help her gain 50 pounds back to her normal weight.
Oh, wow.
And she ended up living about 15 months. But later on, I went back into education. During COVID, I taught at Indio High School when our teachers really needed us the most, needed some help there. And then I moved into environmental education. I was a director of education for a nonprofit focused on environmental education. Now been promoted to deputy director. But in 2018 is when I really got involved in politics. We were seeing the impacts of the Trump administration here locally. We were seeing a lot of that anti-immigrant sentiments. We were seeing the lack of a conversation around housing, around investment into our low-income communities. And so we got organized. There was about 10 of us, all under 30 years old at the time. And we figured out how to file the paperwork. We got organized, and with only $8,000, we door knocked the whole district, and we won over 60% of the vote in the city of Indio. So in 2018, I was elected as the youngest council member in the history of the city at 28 years old.
Wow. And today you're how old?
I am 36 years.
And tell us what race are you in currently?
I'm in the race for State Assembly in District 36. It's a region that covers from Indio all the way to Calexico at the border, also goes up to Blythe and Needles, and then goes towards Hemet as well.
It's a wide area.
Yeah.
And
doing a lot of driving.
Yeah, I can imagine the miles you're putting in that car. So in all of this education that you have, in all of the political understanding that you have, being a council member of a city as big and as large as India, what are some of the tidbits that you've picked up that help you to continue in those positions?
I think for me, it's been just the focus on improving the lives of our working families. I think in Indio, we've been able to do that by improving community engagement. We provided new services in translation. We're more active on social media. We have award-winning marketing campaigns. We've increased the production of affordable housing. We've approved every affordable housing in the past 7 years, leading to over 1,000 units approved for development. We focused on our downtown, an area that was quite empty for about 4 decades. And in partnership with some really talented businesses in our community, we've been able to mutually invest in that area and bring a lot more economic activity to downtown Indio, but also to other areas in the city of Indio. We're building a lot of housing. We have ribbon cuttings every weekend. And that economic activity has allowed us to be able to make strategic investments throughout the city. We have 3 new public safety buildings. We have a new city hall, a new library, $70 million in electrical infrastructure on the way. And now we're focusing on our bridges. Avenue 44 bridge is almost done. We're going to start construction on the Monroe Bridge this year. And then Jackson Bridge is under design at the moment. I've also helped lead the conversations around energy and sustainability. I'm currently the chair of the Coachella Valley Association of Governments Energy and Sustainability Committee. So even though I'm one of the youngest ones there, my peers have chosen me to lead the conversations and bring in new projects on energy efficiency, water conservation, and urban greening to help lower the temperatures as we're seeing the rise in extreme heat throughout the region. I also think, we've been helping lead a lot of the very tough conversations in our community. The conversation on affordable housing was very volatile when we started this 7 years ago. But we've been able to get a lot of community support and actually get unanimous support from bipartisan support for these projects in the city of Indio. When it comes to immigration, we've been working hand in hand with our local organizers to make sure that we're getting out good education, good resources, making sure that people have legal assistance. And that's one of my biggest criticisms of our current assembly member, that he's been quite quiet on this issue. Meanwhile, our residents are really suffering. We have a lot of human rights abuses happening throughout our detention centers. The last one that I'll mention is election integrity. Recently we had Sheriff Chad Bianco seize over 500,000 ballots from the county registrar's office. And the current assembly member has endorsed Chad Bianco to run for governor. Meanwhile, I'm working with Riverside Councilmember Clarissa Cervantes to file a petition at the California Supreme Court to make sure that we're getting those ballots back into the hands of those that are legally allowed to handle them. And so I think we've been able to show very bold and effective leadership here at the regional level, and we're looking to keep that work going at the state level.
Oscar, thank you for sharing all of this. I mean, you definitely have not just your mind in a lot of different places. You seem to understand a lot of the policies. I'm sure you've come up with some of your own. And I would like to share now with you a few questions that I've compiled with multiple leaders across not just Riverside County, also Imperial County. These are some questions in people's minds that they'd like to ask of a candidate. If it's okay with you, I'm going to pick a few and write them out and just let us know what your thoughts are.
Good.
So families across the Coachella Valley say the rising cost of groceries, housing, gas, and utilities is making everyday life more difficult. What would you do in Sacramento to help lower the cost of living for residents in this region?
I think first I would focus on 2 of the issues that are really taking a lot of the money out of our residents' pockets, and those would be housing and healthcare. And when we're looking at housing and making sure that we're investing into housing for working families, also looking at streamlining the permitting process to make the process faster and increase that production. And then I also want to look at sustainable ways of constructing housing. How do we modernize old traditional ways of building that fit our area very well in the desert? Also, when it comes to healthcare, looking at how do we provide regulations that'll make sure that our healthcare dollars are going to direct services and healthcare workers. Right now, we currently see that 20 to 25% of our healthcare dollars are going to shareholders and are not being reinvested into our healthcare system. And so we see other countries, right? Mexico just approved free universal healthcare, along with many other nations around the world. We have good examples of how this can be done, and that's what I'd like to see here at the state level. The other part of keeping up with those costs is helping support small businesses. A lot of our people work 2 jobs, right? And so whether it's a side job or they're starting a new brick and mortar business, how do we help them along with that process through easy permitting, through resources and education, right? And supporting them along the way with those permitting processes as well.
Very good. So let me move on to the next one. Housing for working families. Many residents say housing is becoming harder to afford, especially for middle-class families trying to buy a home. Now, what policies would you support at the state level to increase housing opportunities for working families?
Yeah, I think the immediate relief comes from subsidized housing, right? Affordable housing projects. So going to the state and making sure that our region is getting its fair share of funds for building those housing opportunities for our working families. But then when we look at the cost of construction, even those affordable apartments can cost over $500,000 for
Right.
one unit. And so I think in the long term, it's going to be financially unsustainable to just count on subsidized housing, right? And that's where we got to look at the streamlining that permitting process, making it easier for people. The long wait times for permitting cost businesses a lot of money, right? Cost builders a lot of money and brings up the price of housing as well. But as I mentioned earlier, one of the innovative ways that we want to tackle this is looking at how do we modernize traditional ways of building? And in the desert, that's been for a long time adobe and straw house construction. And so, how can that help us? I think these studies can help us find solutions to more affordable ways of building, also lower our energy costs. These are very energy efficient buildings. They're also fire resistant, which might be able to help us lower insurance costs, which are skyrocketing at the moment. They're also very good for the environment. Right now, we're seeing after the wildfires, there's a huge amount of contamination in the LA area from structures. This will help us prevent that. And we know that this is possible, right? I know it seems kind of far-fetched sometimes, but our grandparents built these type of housing, right? And so I think it's going to be good to go back and look at these traditional ways and modernize them and make them fit today's needs for us.
So what you're saying is, if I'm understanding this, you're not saying, hey, let's just get a bunch of mud to what have you and build it. You're saying let's take what that structure was and the integrity of it and see how we can modernize its use
Yes.
to create better structures that then have better solutions for multiple problems across California. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I think using different materials, how do we use those materials to make homes
Right, because
that
they
look like
use them at
modern
some
homes?
point, right? Yeah. Okay.
And many people are still using them, right?
Right.
So how do we make those look like modern homes, but use those sustainable materials to help us in the energy efficiency, in fire resistance, especially in areas like Hemet that are going to
Right.
be under threat
Yeah.
of wildfires.
Yeah.
And then in the long term, it's going to help us maintain safety for our environment in terms of our safe water, safe air, uh, uh, our soils as well. I think in the long term, it's going to save us a lot of money.
Okay, let's move on to the next question here. Homelessness continues to affect many communities throughout the valley, and residents want solutions that are both compassionate and effective. Now, what would you do at the state level to reduce homelessness and expand support services?
We need to face these issues head on. I think we've set a good example in the city of Indio in showing the collaboration between our police and our local nonprofits. And when we look at homelessness, I think there's a few factors that are increasing those issues. One of them is housing and cost of living skyrocketing compared to our wages. But then on top of that, you have the issues of mental health and drug addiction, right? And when it comes to mental health, how do we get people support for their mental health issues is providing affordable access to healthcare and access to those services. We've been doing that really well by bringing in great partners into our community health centers in the city of Indio. Right now, we just built a brand new mental health facility with 80 beds so that people don't just get 5150 into JFK and get released the next day without services, right? We're making sure that people get the right services so they can go home to a safer environment.
Right.
When we look at drug use, right? How do we get people the support they need to get off of drugs? Our ABC Recovery Center in the city of Indio is more than doubling their footprint right now to provide the right services for our community. Our churches are also doing a great job in supporting people through their recovery efforts. So I think we know we have the solutions, right? It's just bringing in the right partnerships, bringing the state, federal, and local funding, and then gathering community support, which can be really difficult at times as well. But with the right education and the right partners, I think we could build that support in our communities.
That's fair. Good answer. I'd like to ask you a bit about our state budget and public services. So California continues to face budget pressures while residents still rely on essential services like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Now, how would you balance protecting these services while maintaining a responsible state budget?
Yeah, I think we really need to focus on the priorities for our community, right? Making sure that we're investing into the infrastructure for our communities to bring in the economic activity that can help us improve our budget, helping make investments in transportation and energy specifically. Also, making sure that we're investing into education to provide a strong workforce and more opportunities for our families, and then investing into healthcare and childcare. I think we really need to support our working families as they help us grow our economy. And a healthy economy needs a healthy workforce. So I think those investments in healthcare and childcare will really help us out. We also need to look at fair taxing policies, closing loopholes that allow the wealthiest Californians and corporations to evade their fair share in taxes. And that ends up putting more strain on our working families that need to keep up with those costs.
Tell me a bit about the support for local schools. There's several schools districts across the Coachella Valley that face financial challenges and concerns about long-term stability. Now, what role should the state play in ensuring school districts remain financially stable and able to serve students?
I think we need to make sure that our education system's prioritizing funding for our teachers, our school workers, and our facilities, right? One of the things that I want to focus on is raising the starting wages for our teachers so that we can attract the talent that we need in our school system. When I was a substitute teacher, I wanted to be a full-time teacher, but I couldn't afford to pay my bills if I would have taken that job. Also, lowering our classroom sizes is extremely important to reduce the strain on our teachers. We have a lot of burnout within our educators, and also to get people, the students, the right attention they need to achieve academically. When I went to Stanford University, I learned there was a lot of students that had 12 students per class, 15, 20 students per class. At that time in India, we had over 40 students per class.
Oh, wow.
And so that attention really makes a huge difference. But I think we also need to improve the transparency and the community engagement, ensuring that our communities understand how the money is being spent in their school districts so they can then advocate for their children and their students for what they need within those budgets. And lastly, I would say providing a safe learning environment for our students. When students don't feel safe or they don't feel like they're getting the right educational resources, they will move to another district. And when they move, they take the funding with them, right? And so we end up seeing that school districts that are already struggling end up struggling even more when they're losing those students. So making sure that we're addressing some of those issues on the front end to make sure that we continue the funding coming into our struggling school districts.
We talked about some regional issues. I'd like to bring some things up. The Coachella Valley depends heavily on a stable water supply as the population grows. Now, what steps should the state take to ensure long-term water security for the region?
Yeah, so we're currently in a grave situation right now in the Colorado River. We've lost 30% of the water supply over the past decade. We're losing a lot of water resources for our agricultural industry in the Imperial Valley, and we're still planning on expansion. And now we're even looking at very heavy water use projects like data centers, right? And so what I think we should be prioritizing, first of all, is water recycling to make sure that we're taking advantage of every drop that we have available in our communities, investing in conservation and efficiency. One of the things that I really want to look into is how can we use greenhouses to improve production and reduce water use. In the Netherlands, it's one of the smallest countries, but they produce a high amount of vegetables for the world. And it's because they've learned how to use greenhouses for their region. So I'd like to look at that and see how we can increase production of different types of crops here in the desert and reduce our water use through those greenhouses. Lastly, when we look outside of agriculture, 70 to 80% of our water use is in landscaping here in the Coachella Valley. It's outdoor water use. And so looking at ways to provide efficiency outdoors, we've done that in Indio by incentivizing native planting. And with those native plants, we're able to reduce our water use pretty drastically, but still have shade and urban greening to lower temperatures and providing a good wildlife benefit for our community as well.
Communities near the Salton Sea continue to deal with air quality and environmental health concerns. Now, what role should the state play in addressing these environmental challenges and protecting public health?
I think when we're looking at the Salton Sea, we first need to listen to the communities that live around there, right? And there's a lot of different amenities that are still needed. There's a lack of road infrastructure. There's no streetlights. There's very few parks for the kids. So making sure that we're addressing that human need first, and then the environmental impacts on those communities, right, that we see. I think one of the things that I would prioritize is indoor air quality. It's a lot easier to control indoor air quality than outdoor air quality, right? So providing affordable filtration systems that have easy maintenance so that people can at least have clean air when they go home. But then when we're looking at the outdoor air quality, I would focus on the workforce out there, especially those who are dealing with dust and pesticide issues on a daily basis, making sure that we're having proper health checks on those communities to see the impacts that are having, especially now as we're seeing the deregulation of pesticides at the federal level. And third, I would say keeping up with the science. Right now, I really appreciate the species conservation project that's happening on the south end. That's being able to calm some of the dust and providing a lot of wildlife benefit. But we're still going to see a lot of exposed playa, even with those projects coming in. So keeping up with the public health impacts there, and as well as right now UC Riverside is saying that we also need to pay attention to the water. The health of the water can be impacting the communities. They're seeing there's a sea breeze that comes from the Salton Sea, right? Much like the ocean. And that can really, it seems there's some theories that could be negatively impacting the communities around. So how do we deal with the actual health of the sea of the water because it's tied to the health of the communities there?
When we started the conversation, you mentioned something about community safety and confidence. So there are many immigrant families across the state that say they are afraid to go shopping, attend events, or gather at religious services. Now, the fear can also affect local businesses and community life. So, what can the state do to restore confidence so families feel safe participating in everyday activities?
The impacts we're seeing, I think, are extremely concerning and un-American, honestly. The things that we're seeing, that ICE committing crimes against our families here. And one of the things to take note of is that these impacts are going to have physical and psychological impacts on those families and on our communities for many years to come. And so one of the actions that I see that's currently moving through the assembly is providing accountability at the state level. How do we make it able for people to be able to file charges here at the state level against federal agents or against detention centers for the human rights violations that they're committing against our families? The other part that we've been very active on is education and resources, making sure that people have access to legal assistance, people are planning for family emergencies, and making sure that we're ensuring that they know what the pathways are for legalization and citizenship here. Right now, we're working hand in hand with our local organizers. We're making sure that we're actually on the ground helping track down family members when we get phone calls. We're getting resources out at social media and radio, and we're pushing for more government transparency. We filed one of the first Freedom of Information Act requests to the Department of Homeland Security through the city of Indio, demanding transparency so that we can have some accountability for our community.
When you when you talked about following the trends and whatnot, are there any policies that you're following that are currently at the state assembly that represent, or you can connect to in regards to this specific topic?
Yeah, I think the one that allows for criminal charges to be filed in our state courts, I think that's the most important one, because that allows us to have some accountability even when the federal government won't step in to protect our residents. And so I think that's a really important one that will provide that accountability and make sure that we're able to enforce some of these laws at the state level.
So the future of the Coachella Valley and beyond, you wouldn't represent just one area, Riverside County, Imperial County, the state of California.
Yeah.
So it continues to grow and change, bringing both opportunities and challenges. Now, what is your vision for how the state should support not only the valley, but your region's future growth and prosperity?
Yeah, I think it first of all starts with a stable and responsible government, right? People want to see that we're focused on community needs and providing the resources and for our residents and businesses to be able to thrive in our region. Secondly, I would say investing into our youth, making sure that we're building access to high quality public education in the region is going to be extremely important. Investing into schools and parks to keep our kids active and engaged in their education, and also mentally and physically healthy for our community. Bringing new opportunities in careers, especially small business assistance, investments in career training and access to higher education, and also building up that infrastructure needed for business growth in terms of energy and transportation. Lastly, I would say keeping up with that strong partnership of public safety and social services. I think that's going to be extremely important so that we ensure that we're getting people back on their feet, back into the workforce, and providing a way out for those most in need, whether it's housing, healthcare, help with recovery assistance, or mental health services as well.
Very cool. So, Oscar, I mean, you definitely, thank you for sharing all of this. You definitely have knowledge in a lot of this stuff. I would like to ask you one more question. Maybe it wasn't added, and it's just conversation, but I'd like to ask you.
Mhm.
So this is your first round at a state assembly, and your opponent has been there for a year or two almost. You're coming in fresh. What would you bring in into that position that maybe the person that's there now doesn't have? Well, how does that outweigh, right? Because experience sometimes outweighs wanting to be in it. What would you say makes you stand out?
Yeah, I would actually say that we have more experience on our level because I have been in local government for the past 8 years, building relationships throughout the state, right? I think one of the issues I have with our current assembly member is he's not able to pass legislation. Even the legislation that he's writing up, it's very hard for him to pass that through the assembly because he doesn't have the right relationships there or the right experience to write good policy that can make its way through the state capitol. And so for me, I know that I've been building those relationships along the way. I've been going to a lot of different conferences and events and meeting new people and always growing my network. And so when we get to Sacramento, I know that we're going to be able to have the right relationships to be able to get our policies passed and the help to write great policy for our region here.
Best of luck to you. But right now, I'd like to give you an opportunity to let our viewers know and everybody watching at home, whomever it is, across wherever areas of California, why you? Why are you the person? Could you share with us what is important about knowing who Oscar is and the candidate that you are and the person that you are?
Yeah, I think if you just look at my record in the city of Indio and the Coachella Valley, you'll see that we've been extremely focused on improving the lives of our working families and making sure that everybody has a voice in our government. And so we believe that that history of bold and effective leadership is why we've been gaining a lot of support for the state assembly race. Currently, we have the support of state senators, including Sabrina Cervantes, Lola Smallwood Cuevas out of LA, Jesse Arreguin out of the Bay Area, and Bob Archuleta, who's currently the chair of the Senate Committee on Military and Veterans Affairs. We also have the support of assembly members Mark Gonzalez, Corey Jackson, Robert Garcia, and Alex Lee, who's the chair of the Legislative Progressive Caucus. We have 27 workers' unions behind us, more than anybody, far more than anybody in this race. That includes every major education union. That includes healthcare workers, domestic workers, grocery store workers, our electricians and plumbers are all coming in behind us. Both of our regional labor councils in Imperial County and Riverside County have said that we're the right candidate. The statewide labor federation has chosen us and endorsed us. And I believe that is because they see the connection that we have with our working families. We're very well aligned with workers all throughout the region and around the state. And so now, we want to let people know that our priority is our community. And you can see that in our financing as well for our campaign. Right now, our campaign is funded by community members, small businesses, organized workers. We have the broadest support of any campaign with over 400 individual donors supporting us in this race. And so I want to let our voters know that I'm ready to serve my community at the state level. I have a strong background in science, experience in local government, and I think that's going to be critical as we face the evolving challenges in cost of living, political instability, and also the environmental challenges that are coming forward. And so I think we have a lot of work to do to help our community through these times, and I hope that people will join us in this worker-led movement to take the seat back in Sacramento and bring new, innovative, and community-centered leadership for our region.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with all of this. It is quite a tough race ahead of you, and I know you have a lot of continued growth within the Sacramento region and everybody else. But I'd like to mention that in the time that you've committed the race, there's been a lot of people commenting on it, and so the buzz is there. So please continue forward, and good luck to all of your endeavors. Now, guys, to all of you for being here with us today. If you're here with us today this morning, thank you for being here with us. If you're here tonight, have a great night. Goodbye.
Thank you.